I did promise that we're going to have a conversation with the Executive Vice President, Global Trade Bank, with AFREXIMBANK, Mr. Hyphen El Mayeri. Of course, he's been there since Monday. So let's find out what's been happening. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayeri. Thank you so much for your time. So what conversations have been going on right there in Davos, especially from the perspective of AFREXIMBANK?
Having me today. Yes, it's been very active here at Davos. You have a large number of the decision makers of the world meeting in one place. And it's very exciting, but you see a lot of themes are shining. You see one of the big themes that we're seeing also is the talk of digital and AI. It's a big topic, and even as you walk the Davos promenade, which all the houses are there, you see a lot of AI companies, AI discussion are happening, data. There's a big discussion also on health infrastructure. We see people going different topics. The other topic that's a lot of people are discussing is also the supply chain within the world, and what is the future of supply chain given the changes, and how things will shift. So this is also a big topic that we see around in our discussions with our colleague within this week that we have encountered.
Need for Africa, because sometimes it does seem like either Africans are not, or the continent itself is not recognized, or just seen as one of that last at the bottom status.
Because I think what we need to do in global forums like this, we need to unify Africa's voice. So to your question, when it comes to Africa and Davos, we've been around with a lot of discussion now on South Africa leading the B20, G20 seats, and the hosting. There's a lot of discussion on how can we unify Africa's voice and put Africa agenda first, and we've done a couple of meetings on this. We pushed the agenda of how can we get the world to understand African context of energy transition. For example, African 600 million out of the 1.3 don't have access to electricity, clean energy, resulting in 500,000 of death every year. How can we adjust this in the context of energy transition? Because they need energy first, and then we can transition them, and so on.
So for
discussion on Africa, how Africa is being affected by the lack of data collaboration and data exchange. We've discussed a lot with the AFCFTA, the Free Trade Agreement, how they're now working on this digital protocol, digital trade protocol, data exchange, how this will solve a lot. For example, if you want to solve the health issue in Africa, we don't have hospital data exchanges between countries. We don't know what are the prevalent issues. It's very difficult to focus people on this, but also we carried a lot of the Africa agenda within our meetings. Like we met with the Swiss government, we met with the likes of Novartis and other, and the whole discussion is how to bring R&D to the continent, how to get people to focus on disease that is not interesting for global companies, but critical for the continent, and what infrastructure that we need to finance and support with to enable this agenda. So another big discussion when it comes to Africa was on how the new shifts that's happening recently in the world of supply chain and customs and the different production center that will be affected by the changes within the tariffs globally, and how can Africa benefit or avoid any disruption. And the whole discussion was about there will be shifting in the world now. How can Africa be a beneficiary of this? How can Africa host the new change? We give a lot of examples of AFREXIMBANK, where we have provided a lot of companies home in Africa in our free zone area, industrial free zone area, where we typically host companies, make it easy for them to come, make Africa their home, benefit from the free trade agreement. So a lot of Africa discussion, and I think the African voice year after year now being magnified, galvanized, and hopefully we see it year on year in this global forum more heard, as we're seeing now happening step by step.
So can we expect anything new from AFREXIMBANK after your interactions and conversations over there?
So several things. What we see, a lot of people with funds that want to come into Africa did not know much how a bank like us, a multilateral like us, can support them get the right entry into the continent. And we had a lot of discussion that we need to help Africa. Your funds coming into Africa, we have our own infrastructure to do the right guarantees around it to make sure that you're not taking the risk, but you're providing the funding. There is also a big discussion that we had AFREXIMBANKs coming back with, where on the health area, and a lot of discussion on how can we start to invest in health infrastructure. We talked to global partners, and we try to invite them, please come, do the research in Africa on Africans, is because a lot of our medication is already tested for Europe, for Caucasian, and it might not be the same effect that we expect for our continent. So on the health side, we had a lot of discussion with the global player, and we'll bring them to Africa. On the infrastructure, we discussed a number of infrastructure projects with a number of African countries on the global scale here, and we'll continue discussion when we come back home. We already discussed with a lot of parties on solutions that we can bring to solve the data across Africa, data in general and data for health. And we have a lot of contacts with them that we agreed that later on we'll discuss. So I think very beneficial contact for us in terms of infrastructure, in terms of data, in terms of health, and sits nicely now on our agenda as we go back to our headquarters to start to execute and bring this very interesting contacts that we have encountered on the global level that have interest in Africa, but needed someone to work alongside with them who understand Africa very well so that they can increase the impact as they go in. And we've represented Africa through Africa Collective Association, which has worked with them onto having our own sort of a house where we have partners from Novartis, from Standard Bank, and other collectively put this together to kind of start to have a bigger Africa presence in Davos, which is paying off nicely of the we're going back with.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Haytham El Mayergi, the Executive Vice President, Global Trade Bank with AFREXIMBANK.
Thank you very much.